In this video, I'll first do a little painting of a hydrangea petal cluster to demonstrate some of the techniques discussed in the previous videos. First a sketch. Then pick the Wash Clean Edge No Variation brush. Then, with the colour selected, quinacridone magenta in this case, I'll carefully paint the top petal. As you can see, this brush gives a very flat wash with clean, sharp edges. I'll turn off the sketch to show this. Now I'll put an edge around the petal by using the Make Edges action. I'll set the edge layer to 100% and zoom in so you can see the edge clearly. I'll pick a smudge brush to remove edges I don't want, in this case where the middle petal overlaps the top petal, and remove the sketch to see the result. I now lock the edge layer so I don't paint on it by mistake. And I'll put the edge and paint layer into a group I'll call top petal. I'll now use the first paint layer to create a mask to make it easier for the next steps, that is, to build up the petal. Control click, or on the Mac I think it's Command click, on the watercolor layer icon. This selects the visible or non-transparent pixels. Because the paint is very thin, we get a message saying that less than 50% pixels have been selected. That's okay. Now click on the Add Layer Mask icon after having selected the top petal group. This will add a mask to the group. Now Alt-click on the mask to display it. As you can see, we have a grey version of the petal. However, we want it to be white, because white on a layer mask is like an open window through which you can see the group contents, whereas black is like a solid wall and grey is like a window with opaque glass. To make the mask petal selection white, pick the Levels adjustment and bring the rightmost slider all the way to the left. Now we have a perfect selection. If needed, you can pick the mask brush hard and paint with white or black as required to clean up the mask, so that all we are left with is a white version of the petal. Normally there would be no need to do this, as we rarely need to be so precise in watercolor painting. I'll now demonstrate the effect of the mask by painting over the watercolor layer. As you can see, the mask restricts the paint to the petal. I'll now start to build up the petal on a new layer, or new layers rather, using the Wash Squirrel Soft brush. The process is to put some paint down, smudge if necessary, make a new layer, and repeat the process until we're satisfied with the result. I'll now add some veins to the petal using the dry rigger. By the way, you may find that the brushes you've downloaded have slightly different names, as I try in new releases of the tools to use more meaningful names and to organize the tools better. Of course, I will need to adjust the opacity and size of the brush. I now merge the layers by using the Merge Layers action. Now that I'm back to a single layer, I can remove some paint and do a bit of smudging before repeating the process for the other petals. I will now paint the base layer for the remaining petals. Here they are. I now build up the other petals and the bud. All the layers are identical, in a group with an edge layer and a watercolor layer. This has been collapsed from multiple layers, of course. The bud group doesn't have a mask, as there was no need, and I also wanted the paint to blend with the petals. I will put all the layers into a group and use a little Photoshop trick to quickly give more tonal depth to the painting. After having saved the group, in case I need to go back to it, I will flatten it. Then I duplicate the layer and set the mode of both layers back to multiply. Flattening the groups sets the layer mode to normal, which is not correct for watercolor painting. I'll then adjust the opacity to suit. The effect is as if I had painted the whole flower all over again on a new layer. I'll merge the two layers and apply sharpening with a high radius value and low amount. This adds local contrast. To finish off, I'll pick the wet on dry thick and thin dual brush, pick a color and adjust the size and opacity to paint the twig on a new layer as usual. I'll apply some edges to the twig using the Make Edges action to give it some more definition. And to finish off, I'll merge the layers. I stop at this point. Of course, there is a lot more we could do. Soften the edges, add color, add shadows, put in a background, and so on. But for demo purposes, I think this is enough. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful.
Welcome. In this video we're going to show you how to paint this flower. Now the flower I have here, it's yellow. It's got some red areas of texture here in the middle, and then it's also got these little specks. The flower petals tend to be in focus. These little guys tend to grow out of focus and become blurry. There's some shadows. We also have a blurry background behind it. Now, my approach to this is the same approach I'm going to use for a fruit or a vegetable, and that I'm going to have a document about the same way, right? And I have a background copy there. Let's make it just solid here. And then we also want to put these side by side. So I want to remind you, just go up to the top here and change it to 2-up mode. All right. And if you don't like this setup, you want to have the picture on the other side, you can. You just switch it over. And let's try it again, doing it the other way. Let's see here. I'm going to switch this back over. And there we go. And then see if I'll do 2-up, and see now it's on the other side. All right. So you can bring up both pictures at the same time. I'm going to make the window for my yellow flower picture a little smaller. So I'm going to bring this over. And one of the things I'm also going to do is tell it to do a zoom all windows. So I'm on the magnifying glass. I'm going to tell it to do a zoom all windows, so that when I zoom in, it's going to zoom in on both. And that's going to help make my my detail work okay. And notice they are different to begin with. You can use the tablet's zoom thing to make that change just one of them. So you see when I use the tablet's zoom bar, that little non-button area on the left there, and I can go in and out, and it makes it to where it doesn't actually change that one. So use that one when you want to just zoom in on your own picture. There's also this option under the hand tool. If you find the hand tool, go to the rotate tool, and you can make it rotate your picture. Now that's very useful, and you can also tell it to rotate all windows. So if you rotate your drawing, it rotates your photo. This is just a smart thing to do, because if you rotate both of them at the same time, your brain doesn't have to turn it in its, and process that inside it itself. So anyway, definitely turn that on and have it on to rotate all windows. Also, under the regular old hand tool, you can tell it to scroll all windows. So if you were to zoom in and then switch to the space bar, it's going to do both of them at the same time. So this is just a couple of setup things that you can use to make things work a little better. I'm going to zoom out. Alright, so now that I'm ready to start, I'm going to get my brush, and I'm going to create a new layer. We're going to call it drawing, and this is where I'm going to set up a little sketch for this. I'm going to sketch, I think, go ahead and use black, and I'm going to have a pretty small brush. My brush, let's check my brush settings here. It's around 70% hardness, spacing is 10%. It's a tiny brush. Right now it's 38 pixels. I might even go smaller. And go to transfer. I have pen pressure on. So when I draw, you can see how it kind of looks. Not too much. All right. So now, if you look at this, we have kind of a crossing downwards here, down to the left. We have a crossing kind of up and to the right, and down to the right. So I'm going to use a little bit of rotation here to make this go straight up and down. And then I'm going to go to my brush, and I'm going to go straight up and down. So let's see, about here, and go straight down. This is just kind of setting up the axis, right, of my picture. Maybe I'll switch back to that rotation and see if I can get this level across, and then we'll switch to our brush and we'll go level across. Let's see how that works. Yeah, and then we'll rotate one more time and see if I can get this last one straight up. Let's see. Go this way. There we go. So that's about straight up, and then I'll do that section. So basically, I set up this little asterisk drawing to just set up the direction of these petals, and I'll go ahead and reset my view. So now that I've got that, I'm going to start getting some of these ones to go out. I think I'm going to start with this one here on the right that goes on top of the other ones. You can see this one's on top here. So I'm going to go back to my brush here and see if I can paint that up. And we'll take that around. It's going to go off page. Take it around this way and go off page. Then let's see. I feel like I need to also do these ones here, so I'm going to go down from these ones and take it down, and do the same thing over here and take it down. And I'm not too concerned about getting this exactly right. I want to get it close, but it's not a big deal. If it's off, it's still going to look like a flower, and that's what my goal is. And kind of like when you're painting somebody's hair, you don't paint every strand of hair, you just make it look like their hair. Alright, you'll go blind trying to do that much detail. And then we'll do these other ones here coming out underneath. This one gets down a little further than that. Notice that this line here was incorrect, and I used it to help me find this line. Remember, don't erase. You don't need to erase. Alright, and then let's get this little guy over here. He's much smaller. Alright, let's see. I feel like maybe our image is a little taller than that one, so I'm going to kind of cut this off here. Say that's my bottom, and make this one a little smaller. Okay, alright. So here's my initial sketch. I'm going to keep that on, and I'm going to make a new layer. We're going to call it underpainting. Oops, there we go, underpainting. Alright, so now on the underpainting, I'm going to use it, I'm going to create a palette. Wow, I'm looking at this again, and it looks like maybe I'm all too high on this. No problem, we'll just go back to our bottom layer here, and we'll just pull it down. Yeah, I think that's going to help. Yeah, just pulling it down. That way I can make this one look a little taller and skinnier. We'll return to that right quick and just kind of fix that. Yeah, much better. Okay, and then this one makes more sense. And we'll ignore that line. Okay, great. So now back on the underpainting, let's see if we can start creating a palette. So I'm going to start getting some colors. So I'm going to hold down Alt or the little button on the tablet to sample that yellow. And then I'm going to press really hard over here on my underpainting layer and create that color. I'm going to get some more colors. Get a bunch of yellows here. Alright. And now I want to probably get some reds. I'm going to get that deep red. And get the red next to it. And maybe some of that orangish red. Alright, so I got some good yellows and good reds. I'm also going to get this kind of grayish color. I don't really know. It's kind of not super gray. I'm going to get maybe this color. What are these called? Like pistils or something? Stamen? I don't remember all that. Anyway, alright. So we got some good colors here. This is my basic color palette for the flower itself. I probably need to have some type of a green come in, but I don't know if I can quite get to it. Anyway, we'll start with just kind of setting up some of these areas inside the large area of the petal. We're going to ignore the shadows, we're going to ignore the red, and just try and work as if it was all this yellowish color within this area. Now I want you to notice some things. I'm going to zoom in on this one on the left here. You see how there's lines that come down. You need to look for those to see if there's some type of particular line work that's necessary for your petal, because you'll be doing obviously a different flower, and I want you to make sure you can recognize the direction of brush strokes. So in my case, my brush strokes need to go outwards like that to mimic those lines. Another thing is when I'm on my brush, one of the things about it is having that brush tip shape and the hardness set to a higher percentage like this is going to allow me to kind of crisscross some lines and create those yellow lines within that area. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is make a slightly bigger brush, and I'm going to start painting some of that yellow inside here on that underpainting layer, keeping my strokes that direction. And you can see that just making those lines that direction ends up creating some of the line work, because the overlap of the transparent brush. Now I do want this to become really solid, so I'm going to start pressing really hard and get my underpainting to be pretty dark. Some of this probably needs to get a little lighter in spots, so I'm going to let it get lighter, sample some of that, and blend it out, so that while it is lighter like it was just a moment ago, it's opaque, so you can't see through it. So that's good. And let's get some of the orangish color, a little smaller size brush over here on the right, kind of just setting up that darker shadow along that edge. Not really worrying about the actual projected shadows or cast shadows from the middle, but instead just trying to make it change with the contour. Have some lines going down through, and you see a big one kind of coming that way. Make it kind of fade, so you can see how I'm kind of mimicking those directional strokes. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is show you how to do this one here while I'm talking. Then I'm going to kind of fast forward to get all the other ones in. So I'll do those in fast motion for you. I think maybe we'll put a little bit of the reddish color in just to kind of show that it's there, although I'll probably end up having to paint over it completely. So I'm going to just kind of get a little bit of that in here just to kind of say, yes, I do get a little redder in that area. And like I said, this is basically the type of drawing I want. I'm not worried about the shadows yet. I'm not worried about these guys yet, because I'll do those on probably a completely different layer. So with that, I'm going to try and fast forward for you, and we'll get back in a little bit.